It appears that we are beginning to see some shifts in the rental market, especially as it pertains to the state of California. Beginning in about 2018, about the same time as we started seeing interest rates decline and the shortage of homes for sale become an issue, which throughout the time of COVID ended up making homes much more expensive for buyers to ascertain. Those buyers that wanted to purchase a home started moving into rentals. Now, being a property owner, a landlord in this case, to where you own a piece of property and you rent it out is a great long-term investment, especially when you see your monthly rent rates increase year over year. But there's always a tipping point. For the last couple of years, we've been watching as landlords, knowing that there is such a demand for rentals, be able to ask very, very high qualification standards before even considering a tenant. In a lot of cases, you will see landlords put a property for rent, let's say a single family home. Let's say they're now asking $5,000 a month. The requirement is to be able to rent that $5,000 a month home. They want to see documented income of 3 times the amount of $5,000 a month, meaning the household income would need to be $15,000 a month. On top of that, they want to see mid to high 700 FICO scores. So we are talking high credit rating, as well as substantial income compared to what the monthly rent would be. Now, landlords are faced with the same problem that homeowners are currently, especially in California, with the cost of homeowners insurance, hazard insurance rising, and in many cases being almost impossible to obtain. That has started to affect the rental market as well. You will see the price of renters insurance go up, and we are finding lots of tenants whose policies, even though they're in good standing, are being canceled. Now, add to that because of the high demand for an available property for rent, not only are landlords charging an exorbitant amount for rent, but they are also charging first and last month rent upfront and a security deposit equal to 1 month's rent. So in this case, you're talking about, in order to move in, you are already looking at $5,000, which will pay your first month's rent just to obtain the property. That doesn't take into effect that if they are one of the few that allows you to have pets, that they will charge you a pet deposit. They will charge you a deposit for receiving the keys and garage door openers. And if you have a dog, they very well may charge you extra a month for the privilege of being able to take the family pet with you. It's also starting to become a norm where the landlord no longer pays any of the utilities. In California, it was quite common that trash and water would be paid by the landlord, and landscaping and any pool maintenance. We're finding more and more properties that are listed for rent that do not include any utilities, do not include any landscaping, and do not cover anything regarding pool service on a weekly basis. It's up to the tenant. So now you're looking at a move-in cost of $15,000 out of pocket, $5,000 of which would go to your first month's rent, perhaps another couple $1,000s in a deposit fee to be able to bring your family dog, and then on top of that, an increase in the monthly rent for the opportunity to be able to have the dog live in the house with you. At the same time, while this scrunches down and limits the amount of people that would meet these qualifications, because these people would often just go buy a home instead, we are starting to see that the potential renters are turning their noses up, not only at the ridiculous pricing and expense of moving into the property, but also the conditions. Long gone seem to be the days where a landlord would make sure the interior was painted in between tenants moving in and going under a lease and moving out. Very often, you are walking into a property that has carpet that's at the end of its life, that has a kitchen that desperately needs to be remodeled, appliances that are extremely worn, interior paint with holes in the wall, nail holes, scratches, dings, dents, the bruises, the usual things we all have in our houses when we live in it. But lack of upgrades in the kitchen and the bathrooms, bad window coverings, and in some cases, really poor condition landscaping because the maintenance for the landscaping was left up to the tenant, who doesn't have the same invested interest all the time in the property as an owner would. So often, grass is dead, plants are dead, trees are overgrown. Well, this becomes the tenant's responsibility. So when a tenant is looking at the opportunity to be able to rent this home, they're looking at it like many first-time buyers are, where they walk in and say, all right, we can make this work and live in it, and we can do little repairs as we go. And as we get money, we can repaint, we can replace the blinds, we'll have new carpet put in, we'll slowly start doing the front and backyard again. And eventually, when we save up enough, maybe after a couple of tax returns, if we're so lucky, we'll remodel the kitchen. And then in a couple of years, we'll remodel a bathroom. But now you don't get the benefit of ownership. So we are starting to see a trend where these individual landlords that own a house that meet these conditions are having a harder and harder time being able to find willing and able tenants that will rent the property. These lease listings are going on market, and where just a year ago they might only sit for 3 to 4 days before the unit is occupied. In this case, I'm getting questions from some of our fellow agents about why it is their rental is sitting on the market for months at a time with no applications and nobody inquiring about being able to see the property. You add to this that under the crunch of trying to develop more housing in the United States, but in this case especially California, we are seeing many commercial buildings, maybe they used to be office buildings, etc., being converted into higher-end apartment living buildings. Also, the new developments that are being built, you will see them all around. They might look like single-family homes, but they're not up for sale. They are being built as rental-only communities. And what all these communities and the different apartments and condos that are being built and converted offer a potential family that's looking for a rental is a much, much lower move-in cost. In these cases, not only do you end up usually with a community pool and maybe a clubhouse, etc., but you also have a brand new house, unit, condo to move into. Fresh paint, modern appliances, modern layout, modern window coverings. Usually it includes solar. You get all sorts of benefits like a new built house, and because it is a corporate-owned development, they are able to offer lower move-in costs. Many times, while rent might still be $5,000 a month, they're pet-friendly and don't charge any extra for animals. They do have ample parking, and your deposit may be as low as $500, and they don't charge first and last months. Second, you also know that should something go out on the property, it needs repair, they actually have contracted services that can very often repair any problems that you encounter while living in the unit same day. So when you compare that to the same house down the street that hasn't been updated since 1991, and it's going to cost you $15,000 to $20,000 to move into that unit, and it's not updated, and you don't know how quickly the landlord's going to repair things, you can see why families are making the decision that they'll go into a rental-only community because it's just more cost-effective. This is putting pricing pressure on our independent landlords that are looking for renters in order to further their investment. Normally, when we see these signs, we can often speculate that the real estate sales market may follow in some similar fashion in the future. So things to keep your eyes on as we go through 2025.